Well, a new name is locked into the NASCAR playoffs, and that's the driver of the 34, Michael McDowell, for Front Row, goes to victory lane at Indianapolis on the road course. An impressive run.
Yeah, definitely an impressive run, and one he put together all day long. They executed, and that brought them to the position where he could do what he did and bring home a win.
Well, you had to execute because it was an interesting race, an early yellow and then 77 laps of green flag racing, where McDowell held off the likes of Daniel Suarez and Chase Elliott. But in the end, for a team that I thought has been aggressive on their strategies, it was really just kind of a block and tackle day, smooth on pit road, good pit stops. They didn't have to be great, and a very nice drive.
Yeah, and the fact that it went green flag for so many laps, I think played into their hand. As a smaller team, you don't have the pit crews and the opportunities to have those lightning fast pit stops. They had good executed pit stops, but under green, lost one to Daniel Suarez there early, maintained from there. A great day for him.
And I want to applaud Travis Peterson. First ever win as a crew chief. There's nothing like your first ever win. But for a crew chief that has found a way to kind of scour points with strategy and stage finishes, this week, he said, this is the week I'm going to lean on my driver. And he really called a very standard style strategy.
Yeah, definitely. As you talked about earlier in the season, they've tried to manufacture opportunities for points. Didn't have to here. They had pace in the race car. I think they realized that as they came here, qualified top 5, had a good driving race car. I heard a lot of excitement about their opportunities on the long run. At that point, Travis Peterson adapted to what the situation he had at hand. Had a good race car. Let's call a race-winning strategy, see where it goes.
Well, in a race with only one yellow, it didn't give teams a lot of opportunity to recover from any sort of issue, but 3 teams that had issues and bounced back. The 54 of Ty Gibbs with a spin early, the 24 of William Byron with inspection issues. It was a mess on Saturday. And the newcomer, Brody Kostecki in the 33, I'm not sure he had an issue. He just had no time. I know he started in a backup car, but he only got about 6 laps in a cup car before the race.
Yeah, let's start with Ty Gibbs in the 54 car. Came out of the only caution of the race and got spun on the restart. Lost all of his track position, and then on spun tires, has to recover from the day. Puts together a really good run forward and kind of parallels. He got back there with William Byron and parallels the path. The two of them drove forward all day long.
You mentioned William Byron. William Byron, inspection issues, had to do a pass through. The only yellow saved the 24, got him to the back of the field, but with no creativity, it was about speed. So if we really take a look at the line graphs of those 2 cars, they are near the back. I mentioned the spin. So the spin is basically this downward move right here for the 54. But then if you look at the cars for the rest of the day, it's really not simple, not easy, but straightforward. They go from the back all the way inside the top 15, just lap after lap, 2 pit stops for both of them, get back inside the top 15. Now for the 33 of Brody Kostecki, same trend, but a 3rd pit stop, an interesting call at the end.
Yeah, I got to give him credit to have to, what did he get, 4 or 5 laps and put together a great run forward in a backup car. Got himself to a position where he was trending right there with the 54 and 24. Justin Alexander made a pretty interesting call here, and it's a call that you can make when you're running the one-off race. When you're not chasing season-long points, you had a conversation with him about his thought process.
He said basically we hadn't seen a yellow. He felt like a yellow was coming, and if the yellow came, he would want to pit for fresh tires. So why not pit right now? If you pit, caution comes out a lap or 2 later, you will leapfrog everybody that pits. I like the aggression for the 33. I hope Brody had a great time. It was fun to watch. There just wasn't a lot of opportunity to help his driver out. He was trying to make something happen.
At the end of the day, if he finishes 17th or he finishes 11th, it's not a big deal either way. Put himself in position to take advantage of something if it came up in the final laps of the race.
How do you define a good day? Well, it's easy for the winner. Michael McDowell held the trophy, but for the 11 of Denny Hamlin and for the 6 of Brad Keselowski, they had to find some sort of glimmering spot of hope in this race. They didn't think track position was going to fall their way to win the race. So points were the goal. The 11 of Hamlin never comes to pit road. He runs all the way through the end of stage 2. The 6 of Brad Keselowski pits at lap 3, then runs to the end of stage 2. They finished 1st and 4th in stage 2 collecting points.
Yeah, the 11 stretched fuel longer than I thought you could coming into here, but Brad Keselowski didn't see himself going forward, got the caution, came topped off. They both started in the 20s. Denny and Brad both did. We talked about it. William Byron started at the back. Brody started at the back in the 33 car. They made it to like 12th and 13th through a body of work of the whole race with good fast race cars. These guys, you got to understand and adapt to the situation. You're 20-something, and that's what you got. Then you've got to manufacture all the points you can out of the day. I think a great gamble by both of these guys. Obviously, a great payout for Chris Gabehart with a bonus point, but it worked forward for those guys all day long and a net positive on points.
Well, Todd, with the win to Indianapolis, Michael McDowell adds his name to the list of drivers guaranteed in the playoffs with a win. That has to feel good. But what doesn't feel good is if you're one of the drivers not with a win. That playoff bubble picture, it is condensing and becoming pressure-packed.
Yeah, it definitely is. Let's look at the closer picture here. Notice that we've added Kevin Harvick and Brad Keselowski to the top of this picture because I think at this point, they're in play. We've got 13 winners, as you talked about, 2 races left. And really, you look at it, Watkins Glen and Daytona, there's several guys that haven't had wins this year that will be in play for those 2 races. If we get two of those, the bubble is going to be, the race is going to be between Brad and Kevin.
Yeah, the simplest way to look at it, 2 new winners are possible. 3 spots open right now on points. Kevin and Brad, if they beat each other in the points, they're in the playoffs. So for me, as a crew chief, if I am the crew chief of the 4, I'd like to leave nothing to any other competitors. My goal over the next 2 weeks, if I'm Rodney Childers, I'm getting my team together and say our goal is to outrun Brad Keselowski in points. If I'm the 6th team, I'm having the same conversation about the 4 because that way, what the other 35 cars do in the race does not matter for my opportunity to be in the playoffs.
If there are 2 new winners, that bubble piece is going to be between the 2 of those cars. Everybody else is kind of out of play at this point with such a large gap at 143 points plus. They're going to make it. It will be between those 2. I think that mentality totally plays. Now, if you look at it from Bubba Wallace's standpoint, 28 points up, but Daniel Suarez closed 30 points to him last weekend at Indy.
He did close 30 points, but I think Bubba had an okay Indianapolis. And as much as I want to make this a 2-week battle for Kevin Harvick and Brad, for Bubba, it's not. If I am Booty Barker, we're going to take this 1 week at a time. We are going to go to Watkins Glen, and we are going to be the best we can be. And whatever that is, it is. I think it's unfair to assume that could be winning speed, but if they can just go score points, don't panic. Don't make mistakes, and give Daniel Suarez points. Make him earn them, or make somebody win the race to knock you out.
And the other piece that I'm going to play out of my pocket, if I'm Booty Barker, is we're strong at the super speedways. We can legitimately go to Daytona and win. We've shown that speed there. Our organization's had that speed. We don't need to make it happen at Watkins Glen. Let's just keep ourselves in position. Try to get everything we can out of it, but just take it 1 race at a time.
It's a good story, and I like the story, and I would have said the same thing. Now, the struggle is below the cut line. Daniel Suarez, very fast at Indy. Ty Gibbs, fast at Indy. Chase Elliott, fast at Indy. Bowman, fast at Indy. Allmendinger, surprisingly slow at Indy, but I'm not sure why. I'm sure they'll bounce back. And Cindric. Every name on that list could win at a road course. We now head to Watkins Glen. That has to be pressure-packed.
Oh, definitely. I feel like there's 7 cars that could win here. Briscoe had a top 10 finish at Indy as well, somebody who's way deep in the points. There's a lot of opportunities for first-time winners here. A lot of this bubble picture is about guys that could win here and into Daytona.
Next up, a very familiar road course for the Cup drivers, Watkins Glen International, 90 laps, stage 1, lap 20, stage 2, lap 40, run about 30 to 35 laps on fuel. What other information are you trying to figure out this week if you have to go to Watkins Glen to call a race?
Yeah, I'm going to look back at the historical lap time fall off and see where that goes to know what the penalty of pitting at different times is. If you look at this in the past, and we don't have cautions at stage ends at road courses, so this brings the old traditional play the race backwards. Put your fuel windows out, see where it goes, see how early you can stop. But what does that gain me? What does that lose me? The pit stop length of that last stop, I think that's another piece you're going to look at because there can be 3 or 4 seconds you have to wait on fuel if you start racing the race as soon as you can get in the window.
Old school strategy. Well, I know old school. Let's take a look at the race itself. It's 90 laps, as I mentioned. Stage 1 is going to finish right here at lap 20, stage 2 at lap 40, but I don't really care about the stages. If I'm going to have to pit twice, and I can basically run 35 laps on fuel, that means I can pit with 70 to go. Then it happens to line up. My first pit stop is going to be right about the end of stage 1. Now I can run 35 laps. I'm going to be out here around 55. And then from there, it is basically game on, run all the way to the finish, and hope that I have enough tire. The advantage of this strategy is that you are not at risk under a yellow.
Yes.
The goal is to pit before the yellows come out so you don't have to pit under yellow and get past guys. That's old school.
And the one piece about that old school strategy that you and I called a lot of times there is that We do 4 tire stops in 9 seconds now. We can't put 20 gallons of fuel in these cars in 9 seconds. It's gonna be more like 14. So there's a 3, 4, 5 second penalty to that last pit stop that way, where if you came out and split that into thirds, you maybe a 2 or 3 second penalty. So there's an opportunity to make that last stop faster. The risk is a caution that comes between those guys that pit early and where your cycle of splitting in thirds, that could put you behind.
The other question is, what is a good weekend at Watkins Glen? If you think you can win, you absolutely want to call a strategy to win the race. But if it's about points, and look, we talk about the bubble, but there are regular season battles within the top 13 for different spots at the regular season because of those playoff points. So for that reason, running through lap 20 and scoring those points could matter. What I think is interesting, though, is pit road doesn't close. You also could literally score points on pit road if you were in the top 10 on pit road. I don't know if it could happen, but it would be a little crazy.
Yeah, you could, because you can pit at any point. You could pit coming to lap 20, and if your pit stall's beyond the start-finish line, you're in a good position.
Well, if we only see a couple yellows, that means that the urgency has to be right away. And I don't mean the start of the race, I mean the start of the weekend. Saturday when the cars unload, qualifying is going to matter for your track position and your pit pick.
We saw it this weekend. Michael McDowell qualified in the top 5, got himself in position. You're going to have to manufacture that track position. Earning it on Saturday is the easiest way to get it. And the other piece is it affects pit selection. And Watkins Glen has a caveat. The pit road from about pit stall 20 on forward down to 1, it's downhill as turn 1 is. It's a challenge because backwards pit stops for these pit crews, and the car is leaning downhill, tires can get away.
Yeah, you're right. Tires can roll out the end of pit road. The RPM can get away from you. You can speed on pit road. It's very tricky. A lot of opportunity to make mistakes. But this week, it's Watkins Glen, the fastest road course on the circuit. Will we see another first-time winner, or will Chase Elliott finally break through in 2023 and win his way into the playoffs?